The Anderson family reunion was in full swing at my sister Amanda's sprawling mansion, champagne flowing as freely as the condescension. I sat quietly in the corner watching my relatives compete for who could flaunt their corporate success most impressively. "Another record quarter," Amanda announced, waving her champagne glass. "Sterling Corp is projecting $300 million in revenue this year. The board's already talking about making me CEO." Our mother beamed with pride while our father nodded approvingly. The perfect daughter with her perfect corporate career. Everything they'd always wanted. "And what about you, Olivia?" Aunt Margaret turned to me with fake concern. "Still running that little shop of yours?" I sipped my water, thinking about the documents waiting on my desk back at the office. Documents that would determine whether Sterling Corp survived the next month, though none of them knew that yet. "The shop's doing fine," I said quietly. Amanda laughed, the sound sharp and mocking. "Oh, come on, Olivia. Fine means you're barely scraping by. When are you going to admit that walking away from Sterling was the biggest mistake of your life?" 10 years ago, I'd been on track to follow Amanda's path at Sterling Corporation. Top of my class at business school, fast-tracked for executive leadership. Then I saw something in the company's practices that didn't sit right: questionable contracts, hidden clauses, predatory deals disguised as partnerships. When I raised concerns, my father, then Sue, told me to keep quiet and play along. "This is how business works, sweetheart. If you can't handle it, maybe the corporate world isn't for you." So I left. Walked away from the family legacy, the guaranteed millions, all of it. I used my savings to buy a small consulting firm specializing in contract law and business ethics. My family thought I was crazy. "Look at you now," Amanda continued, gesturing at my simple dress. "Running a tiny consulting shop while I'm about to become CEO of the company you abandoned. Guess Dad was right. You just couldn't handle real business." If they only knew that my tiny consulting shop had evolved into Summit Partners, one of the most respected business ethics and contract arbitration firms in the country. That Fortune 500 companies fought for our approval on major deals. That my signature could make or break billion-dollar acquisitions. But they didn't need to know that. Not yet. "I do all right," I said mildly. "All right," my father scoffed. "Your sister just closed a $50 million acquisition deal. What's the biggest contract you've handled this year?" "A few thousand for some local shop." I thought about the Sterling Corp acquisition papers sitting on my desk, waiting for my review. The deal Amanda was so proud of. The one that was supposed to save the company from its mounting debt and ethics violations. The one that would collapse the moment I revealed what my team had uncovered. "Actually," I started, but Amanda cut me off. "Don't bother defending your little business, Olivia. We all know you're just too scared to play in the big leagues. I mean, look at you, no designer clothes, no fancy car, probably still living in that modest apartment downtown." They had no idea that I owned the entire building along with half the block. That my modest apartment was actually the penthouse suite. That my simple dress cost more than Amanda's mortgage payment. "You could have had all this," my mother sighed, looking around at Amanda's mansion. "If only you'd stuck with Sterling like your sister." I stood up, smoothing my dress. "I should go. Early meeting tomorrow." "Oh." Amanda smirked. "Meeting with the local coffee shop about their employee handbook?" "Something like that," I replied, thinking about the emergency board meeting I'd called for Sterling Corp tomorrow morning. The one where I'd reveal exactly who owned controlling interest in the ethics commission they so desperately needed approval from. As I walked to the door, Amanda called out, "You know, if you ever want a real job again, I might be able to find something entry-level at Sterling. Though you'd have to work your way up, of course." I turned back, unable to resist. "How's that $50 million acquisition going? Has the ethics commission approved it yet?" Amanda's smile faltered slightly. "Just a formality. Should be approved any day now." I nodded. "We'll see." In my car, I pulled out my phone and called my assistant. "Is everything ready for tomorrow's meeting?" "Yes, Ms. Harrison. All the documentation of Sterling's violations has been compiled. The board members are in shock." I smiled, thinking of Amanda's proud announcement about becoming CEO. "Make sure the projector is working perfectly. I want everyone to have a clear view when I present the evidence. Of course. Though, are you sure you don't want to warn your family?" I thought about all the years of mockery, of dismissal, of being treated like a failure because I chose ethics over easy money. "No," I said finally. "Let them find out with everyone else." Back in my office, the entire top floor of a downtown high-rise, I reviewed the Sterling documents one last time. Years of questionable practices hidden under layers of corporate bureaucracy. The same issues I'd spotted a decade ago, now grown into potentially criminal violations. Tomorrow my signature wouldn't just stop their acquisition. It would trigger a full investigation that would shake Sterling Corp to its foundations. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "Thanks for coming tonight, sis. Sorry your little business never took off like Sterling. But hey, at least you tried." I set the phone aside and opened my safe, pulling out the documents that proved I own not just Summit Partners, but the majority stake in the National Business Ethics Commission itself. The same commission that Sterling Corp was desperately trying to appease. Sometimes success isn't about having the biggest office or the fanciest title. Sometimes it's about quietly building something so powerful that when the truth finally comes out, no one sees it coming until it's too late. The Sterling Corp boardroom buzzed with nervous energy the next morning. Board members shifted uncomfortably in their leather chairs, whispering among themselves about the emergency meeting. My sister Amanda sat at the head of the table, trying to project confidence despite the fear in her eyes. I watched through the one-way glass of the adjacent room, remembering all the times I'd sat in this same boardroom as a young executive, fighting against the unethical practices I witnessed. Now I was back not as the family disappointment, but as the person holding Sterling's fate in my hands. "Everyone's here," my assistant whispered. "Including your father." I nodded, straightening my blazer. "Armani, though my family would assume it was off the rack." "Let's begin." The board members fell silent as I walked in. Amanda's face went from confusion to shock to barely concealed panic. "Olivia, what are you doing here? This is a closed board meeting." "Ms. Harrison," the chairman corrected her, "is here representing Summit Partners and the National Business Ethics Commission." "Summit Partners?" My father stood up. "That's impossible. Olivia runs a small consulting firm." I smiled, setting my briefcase on the table. "Summit Partners is my small consulting firm, Dad. We've grown quite a bit in 10 years. But," Amanda sputtered, "Summit Partners is the largest business ethics firm in the country. They're the ones who need to approve your $50 million acquisition?" I finished for her. "Yes, exactly." The color drained from Amanda's face as understanding dawned. I opened my briefcase and began distributing folders to each board member. "Let's discuss Sterling Corp's recent practices, shall we? Starting with the hidden clauses in your acquisition contracts." "Now wait just a minute," my father interrupted. "You can't just come in here and—" "Actually, I can," I cut him off. "As majority stakeholder in the National Business Ethics Commission, I not only have the authority to review Sterling's practices, I have an obligation to do so." The room fell silent. Amanda gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. "What you'll find in those folders," I continued, "is evidence of systematic ethical violations spanning the last decade. The same issues I tried to raise 10 years ago before I was told to keep quiet and play along." I clicked a button, bringing up detailed documentation on the screen. Years of predatory contracts, hidden fees, manipulated data, all meticulously organized and annotated. "Your $50 million acquisition? It's built on fraudulent projections. The company you're trying to acquire has been misled about Sterling's financial stability." "That's not true," Amanda protested weakly. I advanced to the next slide. Bank records showing artificial inflation of assets. Emails discussing how to hide liabilities. Your own messages, Amanda, directing staff to alter reports. The board members were now flipping frantically through their folders. My father had sunk back into his chair, looking suddenly old. "You have two options," I stated clearly. "Option 1. Withdraw from the acquisition, replace current management, and submit to complete ethical oversight from my firm. Option 2. I release these findings publicly and let federal regulators take over." Amanda stood up, her voice shaking. "You can't do this. We're family." "Family?" I laughed. "Was I family when you mocked my little shop last night? When you offered me an entry-level position at the company I could now destroy?" "Olivia," my father started, "if I had known." "Known what? That the daughter you dismissed as a failure now controls the commission you need? That my small consulting firm has the power to shut down Sterling Corp with one phone call?" I walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "You know what the funny thing is? I tried to warn you about these issues years ago, but you were all too busy chasing profits to listen." "What do you want?" the chairman asked quietly. "Compliance, real change, and new leadership." I turned back to face them, starting with immediate resignation of all current executives. Amanda collapsed into her chair. "Everything I've worked for will be worth nothing if these findings go public," I finished. "Your choice." The next hour was a blur of signatures, legal documents, and shattered corporate dreams. By the time I left the boardroom, Sterling Corp had new interim management, and my sister was no longer in line to be CEO. That evening, my phone exploded with messages. My mother, suddenly proud of her successful daughter. Aunt Margaret apologizing for her remarks. Cousins asking about job opportunities at Summit Partners. I ignored them all and poured myself a glass of wine in my penthouse office. The same office they thought I couldn't afford on my small business income. A week later, the business world was buzzing about Sterling Corp's restructuring. Amanda had taken a leave of absence to pursue other opportunities. My father had quietly retired. I received a letter from him attempting to explain, to apologize, to understand how his supposedly unsuccessful daughter had built an empire right under his nose. I never saw it, he wrote. All these years we thought. I wrote back one line, you saw what you wanted to see. 3 months later I was featured in Forbes, the ethics queen of Wall Street. The article detailed how Summit Partners had become the most powerful voice in business ethics, how my signature on a deal was worth more than any bank's approval. The morning it was published I received a text from Amanda. I understand now why you left Sterling. Why you built something different. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I didn't respond. Instead I went to my office, my real office, not the small consulting room they thought I worked from, and looked out over the city. Somewhere out there, my family was finally realizing that success doesn't always look like they think it should. The next family reunion was quieter. No one bragged about deals or promotions. Amanda sat in the corner wearing last season's clothes, no longer the corporate star. My father talked about golf instead of business. My mother didn't once mention Sterling Corp. But when a young cousin pulled me aside and whispered that she wanted to start her own business, despite her parents' objections, I smiled and told her a story. Once upon a time, I began, they laughed at my small shop. Until one day their company needed my signature. Sometimes the biggest victories come in the smallest packages. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room isn't the one bragging about their success. And sometimes, just sometimes, the small business owner they dismissed becomes the giant they can't ignore. I kept the folder of Sterling's violations as a reminder. Not of my revenge but of why I chose this path. Ethics over easy profits. Integrity over family approval. Building something meaningful instead of something merely profitable. My small shop had changed the business world. And I was just getting started. Looking back at that family reunion, at their mockery and dismissal, I realized something important. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone's dreams. It's building your own, so much bigger than they could have imagined. The next time I reviewed a major corporate acquisition, I thought about Amanda's sneer, my father's dismissal, their certainty that I'd never amount to anything. Then I signed the approval, knowing that somewhere in boardrooms across the country, executives held their breath waiting for my decision.